Hey there, bold one. Welcome back to Act Bold. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Tom Vaughan. He is a screenwriter, a former actor, and a screenwriting coach. And the reason that I have him on the podcast, apart from his amazing credits, he wrote Winchester, starring Helen Mirren, and Unstoppable, starring Wesley Snipes. Apart from that, he has some really great insights on what actors can do to create their own material, how to stand out when you're writing query letters, like when you're doing those agent submissions and casting director submissions, how to be on brand, whether you are a screenwriter or an actor, and just a lot of really great tips in general. So, without any further ado, let's get into it.
The ability to meet people, expand those relationships, be fun to work with, be willing to do favors so you don't feel weird asking for favors.
Yeah, that's a great one. So, with that, welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
I
absolutely. Much
topics.
pleasure.
I can talk about this stuff for hours.
Oh, good. Go.
I didn't say be
Been like
interesting.
putting you on the
I'm just saying
spot,
I
right?
can talk about it.
Yeah. So you were an actor before you moved into screenwriting. So how has that influenced your screenwriting, especially in creating characters and dialogue?
It is what's interesting is I didn't think it influenced me early on, but the longer I get, I've been a professional screenwriter almost 30 years now. And the longer I get into it, the more I do it, the more I realize how much my acting training influenced it, of how much all of those principles that I was taught, not just the work ethic, but like how to break down a script, the rhythm of dialogue, having, how to break down a scene and moving from beat to beat to beat. For years, I just assumed that's what I did. I just did it inherently. It was how I was trained, and it's what I did. So I never thought of it of, oh, this is my actor brain, being turned on. To me,
Yeah.
it was just how you create. It's how you create. It's how you be. That's how you get in the moment. That's how you break down a scene. That's how you create. So it was only been later on working with directors who don't have any actor training, who don't know how to break down a scene, and working with executives and other writers and people who start out as writers and what they don't know about all these things, and realizing, oh, well, this is all like they are so hand in hand. Being an actor and being a writer are so hand in glove. And I remember doing a lecture. I teach at the University of Houston now, and I remember being in a lecture and talking about moving from beat to beat to beat. And I was a student here at the University of Houston. One of my dreams was to teach screenwriting here because I love this school and this is where I trained. And Jose Quintero was one of my acting teachers, who was a Broadway legend. And I was giving this lecture on moving from beat to beat in my screenwriting, and it hit me of, "Oh my god, everything comes from Jose." Like,
Deja
everything
vu.
comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, it just flashed before me of, here was this thing that he taught me where my acting really clicked. I've been acting, in high school, and I came from a very serious high school program, and we were classically trained, and we would send kids straight to Juilliard, and it was like a hardcore high school program. But something clicked with me with Jose. Something clicked with me, and I think it was being in the moment and reacting. And of course, you're told, of course, listen, react, and you know that intellectually. But something clicked with Jose about it, moving from an intellectual piece of knowledge that I knew to actually understanding
Yeah.
and being present
That's a
in the
pivotal
moment.
moment. Yeah. When
Yeah.
that information does finally go from your brain to your body. Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
And in that moment, just my acting just took a huge leap.
Yeah.
And trying to convey that idea of creating a moment, and then the next moment is a response to the previous moment,
Right.
and then the next moment after that is a response to that moment, and trying to get writers to get out of their brain about what they think, like, "This is what I want to happen," compared to, well, no, this is the moment and this is what that moment creates.
Right, right.
And then it just clicked with me. I was like, "Oh my god, this is just all." I was my greatest writing teacher was my acting teacher, Jose
Well,
Quintero.
I mean, makes sense, right? We study scripts, as you were saying, we learn to break down scripts. But I think maybe even more importantly is that we learn that we don't have to say everything, right? So because I think the most interesting scripts, the most interesting movies are when things are happening with very little being said. I mean, that's the difference, right, between a movie and a play. And I know you also have a theater background as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was primarily a theater actor, and that's where I went. I started out as a playwright. Edward Albee was my playwriting teacher,
That's just
and
amazing. Yeah.
I started out as a playwright, and then, at some point switched to film. I was very lucky. I was a playwright and an actor who really loved genre films. So it lent itself really well to a to
Yeah.
a, a commercial career to be able to kind of merge all
Yeah.
those things together.
It just dawned on me. I'm 1 degree of separation away from Edward Albee. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but
Yeah. How so?
there you go. Through you.
Yeah. Oh, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even think about it that way.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, I know we had also talked about the importance of creating your own work as an actor and how that can be a really viable way well, first of all, to find work, because
Yeah.
it can be tough. And also, I think even more importantly, to find work that, when you're starting off as an actor, you're dealing with co-stars, smaller roles, small recurring roles. Nothing really meaty, nothing really that shows off
Yeah.
your essence, who you are, like
Yeah.
all of you, right? And so I think when you write something, you really have the opportunity to create a role that matches your brand and how you would like to be seen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it's the old saying of, "Dress for the job you want." Like
That's true. Yeah, I
that's
hadn't thought about
yeah,
that.
no,
Yeah.
yes, this is the idea, and I learned this fairly early on. I was very, very lucky when I was in school here at U of H, and this is 35 years ago, so this is a while ago. But I was very lucky in school. We had Edward, and m I wasn't getting cast in the things that I wanted to be cast in. Like, I was not the leading man, and for whatever reason, because we're all young and stupid at some point, I was frustrated that I wasn't getting the Brad Pitt parts. And so, like, well, I was kind of getting a little discouraged with the writing or with the acting rather. And so I started writing. And then it was just when I started casting plays is when I realized of like, oh my God, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm a character actor. Not like, no wonder I wasn't getting the Brad. I'm not Brad Pitt. I'm a character actor.
Well, very few people
So
are, so
yeah,
you're in
yeah,
good company.
exactly. But when you're 19, you're full of hope.
Oh god,
And
yeah.
so that really developed a habit almost of just, "Oh, I've gotta go out and do this stuff myself." Like, I've gotta and so I learned how to produce plays myself in school, and it just got me into the habit. Like, at some point, it just never occurred to me that I was gonna have to, go out there, and 'cause I remember I was looking for an agent, and I had this great letter of introduction from Edward Albee. Like, Edward, like, wrote me a great letter of, like, "This is a young writer, take him seriously, read his stuff." And so I thought that was the key that would open up all the doors. And so I sent out probably God knows what my memory has enhanced over the years, but, like, it was minimum 30, maybe 50 query letters out to different literary agents, and they all passed on me. They all passed for whatever reason. I think a couple of them wanted to read scripts and they read them and they eventually passed. But what I was doing in the meantime was just putting on plays, producing my own work. It was just what I did. And we opened up a small theater in Houston. When I got out of school, we opened up a small theater and we had hardly any money at all, but we put it up and we just acted like we were a bigger deal than we were. And the two agencies that I did not reach out to were CAA and ICM. And there was just these stories of letters in the mailroom of ridiculous query letters that they would laugh at and then post on the wall because they were so naive or stupid or whatever it was. And I was not going to be one of those letters on the CAA wall. So I did not bother to reach out to them. And the only reason I reached out to William Morris was because that was Edward's agency. So I figured I
Okay.
had
Yeah.
some kind of shot there.
Right.
But the 2 agencies that I refused to was ICM and CAA. Endeavor didn't exist at the time. And we did this play and we got really nice reviews in the local press. And within a week, I got a phone call. And this was after 30 to 50 agents from both coasts turned me down. I got a phone call from CAA who saw the review of the play and wanted to read it.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah. Of course, I sent it. I started a relationship with that agent. And within the play wasn't quite ready for like what they were interested in, but I started a relationship and he really encouraged me to write screenplays. He liked my writing, obviously. And so I wrote a screenplay and it was my third or fourth screenplay that I had written, but the first one that I took seriously,
Yeah.
that I really wanted to see if I can make a commercial piece. Really
Which one
break
was that?
down this was a script called The Mind's Eye, which we sold and eventually got made as a Wesley Snipes film about
Ah,
like this,
okay.
7, 8 years later, we eventually made it. And it's under you'd find it mostly in the States as 9 Lives.
Mm,
Sometimes you'll see it as Unstoppable. It didn't turn out as well as we had hoped, but we got it made and,
right.
we paid some rent. That started a relationship with that agent, and then he became my screenwriting agent, I think later that year. He officially became my agent, and then we went out with that script.
Right.
And it was such a huge lesson for me as far as, like, gosh, when you come to them, they assume the chances of you being worth their time are slim. They just do. And
Sad but
it's not their
true.
fault.
Yeah.
It's not their fault, it's just because most of the time, those are the numbers, those are the statistics, those are just
But,
99% of the
I wanted to
Go ahead.
ask you about that because you said you sent query letters out to 50 agents and
Yeah,
48 of them passed without even asking to read anything. And
yeah, most of the without reading,
so
yeah.
okay, so I really can I ask how your query letter was? Was it just like a straight off, to whom it may
Yeah,
concern? Was
it's
it
a good
very
question
dry?
because you don't know, and it's, obviously this was early '90s, so I don't know if they were terrible query letters or not. But it did have a letter of introduction from Leonard Albee, like there was so I can understand screenwriting agents going, I don't care about Leonard
Right.
Albee. But you think theatricals, like legit playwriting agents, because that's at the time was what I was reaching out with was plays.
Right.
It wasn't screenplays, it was plays. So you'd think a playwriting agent, the literary agent, like who does theatrical, even though that term, if you say theatrical, you really mean films.
Right, right,
So
right, right.
but
No,
if,
I
like, you
just
handle
wonder
playwrights.
because
Yeah.
if they had, if they had all asked to read and then pass, that's one thing, right? That's feedback. It's like
Mhm.
auditioning and, not getting a call back
Sure.
or something. But for me, I would equate this with, you send a headshot and nothing else, and 48 people say, I guess it's not even that. It's not even that much. So if I were to send a query letter as an actor and just, "Dear agent, I'm looking for representation. Could you please take a look at my spotlight or my actor's
Yeah.
access," right? And then
Yeah.
nobody clicks on the link, which we can all try, right? So,
Sure.
yeah. So and I think that I just wonder because I am always telling my clients, lead with personality. People will
Yeah.
forgive a lot if you don't bore the crap out of them,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah, and it's true, and
yeah,
how I would approach a query letter now and how I would teach like, I haven't written a query letter in 30 years, so, like,
yeah.
it's
Well, you
but
don't need
I
to.
I teach, and I work with a lot of young writers, and I've got a lot of friends who teach query letters, and I receive query letters all the time. So, like, I can tell you as someone who receives query letters, like, what I'm looking for.
What are you looking for? I'd love to know.
Me, it's always the log line. For a writer, it's the
Yeah.
log line, and
Yeah.
so, like, for me, like, I want 2 things out of a query letter. I want a log line, and I want you to appear normal. That's it.
Not
Like,
crazy,
that's
right?
all I want.
Yes.
Like, just
That
be
is
normal,
so
don't
funny.
be weird,
Yeah.
don't be weird, be normal, and have a good log line. So, for me, like, like one thing keeps me from being scared of you, which is be normal, don't be weird. Like and you've got to sound like you know something about the business, that you're not insane, that you're not delusional, that you're not, you know,
Yes.
like that all has to be there. But the thing that's going to pique my interest is the log line.
Yeah.
Like that's it. So for an actor, what's the log line? Is it the reel? Is it that first 10 seconds of the
No,
reel? The first,
actors can have a
you know?
log line too.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, yes. I play fierce, fallible women with a heart. Women who go
Great.
down, but not without a fight. So there you go. So that's kind of,
There you go.
yeah,
And then the agent's like, "Do I have a slot for that in
yeah.
my
Does that, and
like,
does it, and
oh,
even
I don't
just,
have anyone who does that right now. Great, let me look at a reel."
and it's very specific, right? It's very specific to me. So hopefully they won't ever have anyone who does exactly that because it's
Yeah,
not, you know, it's not something I've copied from someone else. It's something that I've spent many
yeah,
hours sweating over like we do for log lines, right?
yeah,
And then I'm sure it will continue to evolve as I do. But
yeah, and the more generic it is, the worse it is. Like,
yes.
that doesn't
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's I think it's really important for because, for a screenwriter, the product is the screenplay. And of course, you've got to be able to entice somebody with one or two sentences, period, right? What's the pitch?
yeah.
This is even
What's the
like,
bit?
I also coach my clients to do, you've heard of the electronic press kit. I say do an electronic pitch kit. Pitch yourself as an actor and have
Yeah,
that kind of a thing in there. Have that actor's log line, that pitch line, whatever you wanna call
that's
it.
brilliant. Yeah, I never even thought of that, and that makes so much sense of,
Yeah,
like, this is what I do. Okay, I need that, let me look at the reel.
yeah, yeah. And then, of course, I'm a little bit cheeky, right? So
Mhm.
that comes through in my letter, and if somebody is turned off by that, great, move on. But if somebody is intrigued, then we'll probably be a good fit because I'm not gonna be irreverent when I meet them. I'm going to be a little bit
Yeah, I
cheeky.
mean personality is huge. I mean,
Yeah,
like, that's like and it goes both ways of like, "Oh, well, if they don't like my personality, this isn't gonna be a good fit anyway."
right.
Uh, and then on their end, they're like, "I don't like that personality. This is not gonna be a good fit." So, like, you save some time. Like, what always scares me is just delusionalness
Yeah,
of people who and feel entitled. Like they're not respectful of my time, or they're not respectful of my industry. They're not respectful of our craft. Of I was like anyone that sounds like they're a one project, like this is my life story. Like, oh God, what like
yeah,
this is,
yeah,
so just like just appear normal. Just be a normal person, be a normal, like this is your industry too. This is what you do. Here's what I offer. Take a look at it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is also a huge thing, interestingly, that I also tell my clients is, you know, don't be crazy, don't be delusional. Be somebody that they wanna spend the next month on set with.
I am just born to win an Academy Award. I've known this since I was a
Get out of
child.
my way.
It's mm,
Yeah, yeah. Well, this kind of brings us to networking and building relationships because I know you highlighted the importance of building relationships in the last conversation that we had had.
yeah.
Do you have any particular strategies that you use? We have a mutual acquaintance that's a master at this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, she is. She's
yeah,
really good, Rena.
yeah, Rena.
I have been very, very fortunate over the years, and I'm curious of, like, what you would say because I know, like, being married with kids, and I've only recently got married, and but I didn't get married till until my late 40s, and I've been very, very fortunate through my life, through every phase. In high school, I have a group of friends that I'm very close with. I go into college, I have a group of friends that I'm very close with. When I moved to LA the first time, I have a group of friends that I'm very close with. When I came back to Houston, they're like it's like every level of my life, I've got a expanded group of friends that I have maintained relationships with, like friendships with. And social media has been really great for that to kind of keep that a little easier, just
Yeah,
keeping tab. Even for people that you're not terribly close with, you have some tabs with, you have some interaction with them in some way. But I've noticed that since I got married and I was blessed with a, 6-year-old, bonus child, and
Nice.
she's 11
Yeah.
now, that I do have less time for
Mhm.
those friends. I do have
Yeah.
less time for keeping it, and then my friends who've had children have kind of drifted a little way as well, and because of what I do, 70%, 70 to 80% of my friends are in my industry in some way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
You know, they're directors or actors, writers, producers in some way. And thank God for the other 30%, because otherwise you'd go crazy. But like there are always those relationships. And I want to work with my friends. Like when I meet people who
Yeah.
I like, my first instinct is let's find something to work together on. Like,
Yeah.
let's do this is what I do. I would do it for fun. I did it for fun for God knows how long, before I got paid for it. I did it for fun. I still do stuff a lot of this for fun of like helping a friend out or I did a play a few years ago. I wrote another play a few years ago. That was a money losing proposition from the get-go, and I knew that, but I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I did improv comedy in LA, and that was certainly not for career advancement, but it was like we had a great time and so many great relationships. But I've also met people there that were working on stuff together on a professional level because we got along so well and wanted to keep working and made each other better. So the ability to meet people, expand those relationships, be fun to work with, be willing to do favors so you don't feel weird asking for favors.
Yeah. That's a great one.
Uh, and that sense of community to get you through so many letdowns and so many disappointments.
Yeah.
And also just the excitement and the ability to root for people
Yeah.
and to see them do well. Like I know for like the Academy Awards and the Emmys, like I do not give a shit at all about that crap. I don't watch it. I don't but my God, if I have a friend nominated, I am there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
like it is the most exciting thing in the world.
Yeah. So what I'm
And
really
so like
hearing is that you're very good at maintaining relationships. Because I think a lot of people, they move on and, it's like the slow fade, fade out,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think I am, and I'm very fortunate, and I make a point, like, I make a point when I travel, and I go into towns to visit with people, and phone calls, my friend Susie, I didn't talk to her for a while, of just reaching out and going, "Let's set a plan," and also, that's another big thing that I think is really good for that, even though it's a somewhat on topic, is the spontaneous phone call is really tough.
Yeah.
We are all so busy. Like, we are all so busy, and, like, when someone calls me out of the blue, no matter how much I love them, it's like I
Yeah.
don't know how long that phone call is gonna go. So I can't answer it. Like, I can't answer it. I know I can't answer it because it could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour, it could be 2 hours, and I can't do so what I have gone to do is I make a point of scheduling those phone calls,
Oh,
of,
nice. That's
"Hey,
smart.
can we
Yeah.
schedule a call? We haven't talked in a few months. Let's schedule this out." Like, we'll work in like, "Okay, 7 PM Monday night, we're gonna have a conversation, and we're
Right.
gonna catch up, see what's
Virtual
going on."
cocktail hour.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Nice.
will literally get a coffee and do it in the morning if needed be, like,
Yeah.
"Hey, let me get my coffee." But to plan it out and schedule it and I also saw, like, one guy who I really admire who does a lot of he's a creative, and he's made ridiculous amount of money selling classes, but one of the things that he does is when he's online in social media, he makes a point of meeting at least 2 people that he likes and respects from what he sees, and he reaches out to him. It's a little easier for him because he's a big name. So, like, he's more comfortable going, "Hey, man, I see that you follow me. I really like what you're doing. Can we grab a 25-minute Zoom talk just to chat?"
Yeah.
And it's just about building relationships. That's
Yeah.
all
I think
all it
that's
is.
so powerful. It gets harder when you're not a 20-year-old kid, right? Because I think a lot of times the 20-year-old, that's what I'm always telling my son. You are at an age where you can call pretty much anybody up and just say, "Can I have 5 minutes of advice about this topic?"
Yeah.
I just want to ask you one question. And I think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm,
No,
but yeah, I think people would be hard
I
pressed to say no to that.
people love it. People love to be asked advice. People,
Yeah.
I mean, like that's and again, it just goes back to be normal because as soon as I sense any weirdness from that sort of person, I will definitely back off.
Yeah.
But if I have someone just like a real quick answer, a real quick, and then you also kind of start that relationship too.
Yes.
Like that,
The doors
that's
are
important.
open now. You can call it,
Doors
you
now
can send a
open.
thank you.
And then we had an interaction and it wasn't weird and you weren't weird and
Right.
it was pleasant.
Yeah.
And so you can ask for another interaction later on.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like that becomes and then one of the things I've been doing, which is how I met Rena, which is how I met you, was the 2-hour cocktail parties.
Oh, okay.
And and this is a book called The 2-Hour Cocktail Party, and I feel terrible, I can't remember his name, Gray. I've met him a couple times, he's the sweetest guy in the world.
And this is he wrote
And
a book about a 2-hour cocktail party.
he wrote a book.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
he
think
wrote
that
a
there'd be
book
that much to
and
say about it, but
well, you
apparently
wouldn't
I'm
think.
wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Nick Gray. He wrote this
okay.
book, and he was on a podcast that I listened to, which I again, I just like I really encourage, like, finding those podcasts that you really like yours, of, like, here is a bastion of information of, like, where you and act on it, like, it's so
Yeah.
important. Anyway, he was on this podcast, and he had hosted 1,000 cocktail parties over a 10-year period and had gotten known for it and creates these relationships. And at some point, he said, "This is really dumb of me not to write this down." And so he started writing it down. He ended up writing this book, and it is all of these lessons that he has learned over the years, over, 1,000 cocktail parties, of what works and what doesn't, and what you think will not work, but absolutely works.
So, wait, just
And
so I understand, are we talking about at the party itself or how to get people to meet each
how to
other or,
how to
like, what kind
host
of
the
things are we
party,
talking about?
like how to host the party. You are gonna host this party. Now, I have, social anxiety, so I don't host parties, I don't do any of that stuff because I get painfully embarrassed and uncomfortable very easily if I'm not teaching. I
Mhm.
think, like, if I'm teaching or I'm directing, if I'm in an arena that I am, at this point, an expert
Confident?
in,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm totally confident. I'm totally fine. But put me in a social arena where, like, I'm not teaching and no one knows who I am. I haven't known anybody. I get really uncomfortable naturally, and I don't know, what life gave me for that to be the case. So I can't host a party because I'm terrified people won't show up. I'm embarrassed
Well,
that they
that's not
say,
the case, Tom. I mean,
well,
this is only the second time
that's
we've met, and I would certainly come, so if I feel that way, other
You're
people will
very,
too.
very kind. You're very kind. But yeah, it's not real. It is anxiety. It is not an intellectual, a thing. It's an
Right,
emotional thing.
right.
And so what's great about this book is that it breaks down the steps of how to host a party. Of like, do this, do this, do this, and then do this. And so for someone like me, and I love processes. I love processes. I love a work process. I like a routine. I
Yeah.
like, hey, this is what we this do this step, then do this step, then do this step. Even for my art, I'm still very much process driven, very much structural driven. So for me of like, oh, okay, I can do a process. Like I don't have to be left hanging. I can lean on this
You
process.
can just
And
call it a
so
writers group with
well,
cocktails.
that's what I
That's
did is I just like
Mhm.
it's like I know
Yeah,
screenwriters
yeah,
come to my party.
yeah.
Like I know that. So I hosted my first 2 hours party. And I just invited screenwriters because that was a safe place for me to be. And just got to focus. And I was real open with everyone. It's like, hey, I got this book. I really loved it. We're gonna do the recommendations. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. And we did it, and it was great, and everyone had a good time, people got to meet other people, and then I did it another time 3 months later, and Nick actually came to this one. Nick saw that I had posted on Facebook or on Twitter that I did this party, and he called me up and, It's like, "Well, let me come down. Next one, I'll host it. I'm doing a book tour. I'll be in Houston. Let's time it together." And so the next one, Nick came down, and then he knew Rena, and that's how I met Rena because she came to that party.
Ah,
And again, just got to lean on the process. Just lean on the process. You everyone wears name tags. That's like it sounds silly. Don't let it sound silly. Do it.
right.
Everyone wears
Just
a
do
name.
it. Yeah.
We do icebreakers. It allows people to talk. It allows get out at 2 hours. Like,
Yeah.
don't make it a 3-hour thing. Every 2 hours, everything's done. See you later. Go home. Everyone's leaving
Right.
wanting more.
Yeah.
Everyone meets each other. You get a few moments. You've got the icebreakers. You've got certain things that you can, talk about. People get a chance to see each personality. And I've done 3 of them so far, and they've all been delightful. They've
Yeah.
all been delightful, and they've created new relationships. There's a writer that I did not know, and we're working on something together. I'm producing something she's writing. Rena has been a joyful, relationship for me, but what's really, really fun is to see people that you introduce to each other, and they become friends.
Yeah.
They become contacts. And so I'll get emails of like, "Hey, I just had lunch with Lana," and, like, these 2 people didn't know each other until I introduced them, and they adore each other. And so, like,
How
that's
nice.
that's
Yeah.
really fun. That to see that and be,
Be a part
the
of
one
that.
who initiated.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
really
And
great.
it's a way to kind of get control over your social anxiety, over the awkwardness of, if you make it like I think most people go into a mixer kind of like with the goal of, I'm gonna try not to be weird. I'm gonna try and be normal. I'm trying not gonna be nervous and all of that. One of the things I always do, because I wouldn't nobody ever thinks that I'm socially awkward or nervous, but I totally am at times. Not
Yeah.
always, but I can be,
Yeah,
right?
at times, we all are, yeah.
And especially like if I have to go to a big event, I'm walking in by myself and I'm looking immediately, who do I know? Who do I know? And sometimes it's nobody. So then I look around, well, who else is looking terrified around the room? Who do I know? Who do I know? And then I'll
Yeah,
try and go to them and say, you
yeah,
look like I
and
feel.
this
Yeah.
this process that Nick has put down takes care of all of that. Like,
Interesting.
it takes like
Yeah.
you come in, you never go more than 10 minutes without an icebreaker, meeting people,
I think
like,
it's a
it's
great
no,
idea, and it's a great
it's
idea
wonderful.
to yeah. It's also a great idea, like, when you're looking for ways to make yourself relevant in an industry, right?
Yeah,
So and just
that's a
hone
good way to put it too, yeah.
yeah,
If you become that spoke or that hub, it's
absolutely.
huge.
I'm always trying to think of, I mean, for me, my podcast works really well to create new relationships and all of that, and to get information that I find valuable and, it's enjoyable and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm always looking for the ways that my clients can also create something for themselves that is their
Yeah,
natural talent. Like I just had she's a very talented actress and she loves secondhand shopping. And so vintage clothes and all of that. And she loves
yeah,
it. And I was like, that's kind of fabulous. And it hit me today while I was jogging. She should create a character around the pieces that she finds, like just a little skit and post
yeah.
that and then sell the piece. Did you ever see the thing? There was a little dog that was the most temperamental little demon dog and the owners of this dog, I don't know if they were selling it or they were just giving it away, but they were like, if you have ever wanted the face of a gargoyle possessed by the spirit of a Victorian child, who was tormented by her nannies, then this is and they had this whole story around they had, I think, over 500 letters saying, I want the dog. So I think
Amazing.
if you can create a story around something, yourself included, you
Yeah.
know, then it becomes interesting and relevant. And also like that, and there's another one. He takes, one-star reviews and
Oh,
just
no.
turns them into monologues, which is
Oh,
kind
that's
of
funny.
brilliant.
Yeah, there's your writing.
Yeah,
There's the writing right there. Like, that's definitely sounds like a late night comedy sketch.
it does, doesn't it? The
Yeah,
one-star
just a
review.
really good late night comedy sketch. 1-star reviews.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of that, so you got into improv. Were you with the
Yeah.
Groundlings or where did you do that?
I was with UCB, I mean, as far as taking classes within that community, I was never on a Herald team, so, like, I don't think I was ever in fact, I know I was never on their website as, like, "Here's a UCB performer," but that was my community, and I taught screenwriting within that community, so that
Wait,
was
you
really
taught
that helped
screenwriting
me a
to
lot.
improv people or
Yeah, so yeah, I taught one Becky Drysdale, who is, a premier improviser, if that's a phrase, but
it is
she's a
now.
very good veteran, a very good veteran, and she runs the Clubhouse, which is an independent improv house there. But she was a friend she is a friend, and she really encouraged me to teach screenwriting. So, I was teaching screenwriting before, I just wasn't doing it within the improv community. And so it was they were able to have, here's someone who teaches screenwriting, who understands game, who understands improv, who understands this shared vocabulary. And it was really nice for me because I was pretty old for an improviser. Most of those people were 10, sometimes 15, 20 years younger than me. And that was a wonderful experience in itself, a very, very humbling of,
Yeah. It really is an
doing
amazing craft, yeah.
and then watching people 10, 15 years younger than me just killing it,
Yeah.
and then, like,
Yeah.
me struggling to get competent at it.
Right.
So, like, it was fun to be, um, a student again with something I was struggling with.
Yeah.
It really informed my teaching and I think made me a much better teacher because of it. Um but that's yeah, and it's another thing of just, I really encourage anyone moving to LA or anything like that, and I think it applies anywhere within our craft of find a community. Find
Yeah.
a community, a place where you belong, find a place of shared experiences with other people who know. Now, some communities are poisonous, which is, like,
Yes.
unfortunate but true. Like, you've gotta
Yeah.
protect yourself. There's if you are around negative energy, it will affect you.
Oh,
Like, there's no way around.
absolutely. I'm
Like,
so careful about not letting that into my groups, right? Because
yeah,
one
just cut
bad
it out
apple will literally
immediately.
yeah.
So you've gotta be careful about that, but I found the improv community, for,
So,
you know,
Tom, explain
a
that to
much
me.
higher percentage than normal, just a really positive, wonderful group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I did improv many, 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 many years ago back in Chicago when I was, my late teens, early 20s. That it was a lot of fun, but I also remember, like, definitely being out of my element, like I
Yeah,
needed a script in my hand and all of that, and I think now I'm going to an improv class on Friday night. I just recently started doing them again, and I thought, "You know what? Fuck it." I mean, if I look
yeah,
stupid, well, they'll get a laugh out of that at least, right?
yeah.
So it'll be
Yeah,
fine.
it changed my life in LA. It really did. It made LA such a more appealing, fun, vibrant, creative place for me. Like, I had spent half of my adult life living in LA, and my favorite period in LA was when I was taking improv classes and being a part of that community, like, bar none. And I took it funny enough, I took it because I wanted to scratch my acting itch, like, I
Right.
wanted to get on my feet again, I wanted to get up on stage again. I was like, "Oh, well, this is a way to do it where I don't have to rehearse," not knowing, like, it just takes years to get
Yeah.
really good at
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
like,
To be so
so, like,
free,
this is a lot of
right?
rehearsal for something I don't have to rehearse for.
Right. Yeah. So how does that work teaching so are we talking about improvised screenplays or like where you have an outline
No,
or
no,
what?
just using a lot of the we just use a lot of the vocabulary. It is sketch writers, their sketch is about heighten, and then ultimate heighten, and then maybe a little button and get out. But that's not screenwriting, like, that's a sketch. But what it does do is it really allows those sketch writers and those improvisers, what they are really good at is unpacking a fun thing. Like, unpacking, "Oh, this is interesting. Let me unpack this, and we can build a scene around this fun idea." They're very, very good at that. And if you get that mentality beyond the heighten, 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 get out, and instead play this game as a part of a narrative piece where you're stretching narrative momentum and story from one scene to another. If you can get them to switch, and most of them can because they're smart people, like they can, and they have to be taught to do it.
Oops. Excuse the technical difficulties. I am so sorry. We're having an amazing conversation. You can just trust me that the end of that conversation was just as good as the beginning and the middle. But Podcast decided not to listen anymore and shut down on us. So, unfortunately, I don't have the end of the podcast, but let me know down in the comments below what was your favorite part of the podcast up until this point. And I will also include the best way to get a hold of Tom in case you would like to get your screenwriting skills up to the next level, which is something I recommend in all. Until next time, you stay your bold and beautiful self. Bye bye.